A 19-year-old stops for a snack on a quiet road, unaware the man inside the store is a violent predator out on bond. Pay close attention to Naomi Carter, 19 years old. It's 11:21 p.m. on October 23, 2019 in Auburn, Alabama. She walks into a Chevron station just a couple of minutes from the apartment she shares with her roommate. She buys her favorite chips. She was a devoted sister, following her brother Liam to Auburn University to stay close, her presence a constant anchor in his life. She dreamed of a future in child psychology, believing deeply in healing young hearts. Her mother Diane described her as an old soul. Her stepfather Robert, the fighter, would soften completely when talking about his girl. That laugh, her friends would say, was infectious. She was the planner of group outings, the rememberer of birthdays. This was the vibrant life that was moving toward that gas station. October 23rd began with sadness. Naomi, her brother Liam, and their mother Diane attended a funeral in northern Alabama for a family friend. Service, a celebration of a long life well lived, ran long and was emotionally draining. By 7 p.m., Naomi knew she had to leave. She had a nanny job in the morning, and Auburn was a 4-hour drive away. Diane hugged her daughter, holding her a moment longer than usual, and told her she loved her. It was a goodbye that would replay in her mind forever. A loop of memory where she searched for a sign, a reason to have held on tighter and never let go. The siblings made a brief stop at their family home to see their stepfather, Robert Vance, a professional fighter ranked in the world's top 10. He hugged her tightly, noticing the fatigue etched under her eyes. He almost asked her to stay the night. The words were on his tongue. But she was an adult, nearly home.
And he didn't want to smother her. He didn't.
That unspoken question would become a ghost that haunted every quiet moment thereafter. Drove to Auburn without incident, the car a bubble of shared silence and roadside snacks. Right. Naomi dropped Liam at his place around 11 p.m. "Text me when you're home," he told her. A standard sibling ritual. At 11:09, he messaged, "You almost back?" She replied instantly, "Yeah, like 10 mins." She was so close. The normality of that exchange is what later felt so cruel. It was a script from 100 other nights, containing no hint of the terrifying rewrite that was already in progress. At 11:21 p.m., her car pulls into the Chevron on College Street. The fluorescent lights bleach the concrete, creating a stage of eerie stillness. Cameras see her enter, stay about 90 seconds, buy her chips and a drink. The same cameras capture Marcus Thorne inside, the shadow among the bright aisles. On paper, he's a man from Montgomery with a record. In reality, he's something far worse, a case study in escalating violence. Earlier in 2019, he was charged with abducting an elderly man, robbing him, and beating him nearly to death, leaving the victim with permanent cognitive damage. Judicial file on Thorne was not a record of petty crimes. It was a chronicle of predation against the vulnerable. Petting. The question screams in the silence. How was this man, facing such grave accusations, walking free on a secured bond, staying in a budget motel just minutes from where Naomi would stop? How does a system, burdened by procedure and a presumption of liberty, fail so completely to perform its most basic function, protecting the public from demonstrable danger? The bond was set by a judge who saw only the paperwork, not the pattern. It was a bureaucratic decision with blood-soaked consequences. Somehow Thorne ended up in Naomi's SUV. The exact mechanics are locked in the silence of the dead, but the evidence tells a stark story. Fresh scratches and a dent on the passenger door. Forensic analysts would later posit hinted at a desperate struggle while the vehicle was still new. At some point, minutes after leaving the Chevron, her vehicle appeared at another gas station. Security footage shows a figure exiting the driver's side to purchase a single cigar. The casual nature of this act is chilling, a monstrous return to mundane routine. At 11:43 p.m., a reply came from Naomi's phone. Just met this guy Eric, smoking LOL. Chloe froze. Naomi never used that word. Who is Eric? Where are you? There was no answer. The phone, now likely in Thorne's possession, went silent forever. The next morning, Diane tried their usual FaceTime call. No answer. Chloe, now gripped with anxiety, found Naomi's bed perfectly made, untouched. Never missed work. Never. When Liam got the call that she was missing, a cold, definitive dread seized him. This wasn't a case of a lost phone or a spontaneous trip. It was a fundamental rupture in the universe of their family. Diane and Robert raced to Auburn, a 2-hour nightmare of unfolding panic, where every mile marker felt like an accusation. I knew in my soul something was terribly wrong, Diane would say. It's a physical feeling, a sinking void. They found her apartment untouched, her dog Blue whining and alone. Something that devoted Naomi would never, under any circumstance, allow. Her disappearance became breaking news. The community rallied with fierce love. Ribbons in her favorite color, teal, appeared in trees and mailboxes. Search parties organized through social media. Comb, truth, pine forests, and drainage ditches. Ordinary citizens turned detectives, driven by the desperate hope of bringing a daughter home. On October 25th, 2 days after she vanished, Naomi's SUV was found 55 miles away in Montgomery, abandoned in the corner of an apartment complex lot. The vehicle was not just dirty, it was forensically loaded. Inside, investigators found the unmistakable signs of a violent crime, but there was no sign of Naomi. Her absence from the scene was a terrifying puzzle. Was she alive somewhere, held against her will? This faint, terrible hope would linger for weeks, a torturous alternative to the truth they feared. 2 weeks later, police released the grainy gas station image of the person of interest. When the family learned his identity, Marcus Thorne, and the staggering details of his violent pending charges, their grief twisted into furious, incomprehensible rage. How many warnings does the system need before it protects the innocent? A bond document became a symbol of betrayal. He was located the next day, not in some sophisticated hideout, but hiding in a thicketed area in Florida, suggesting a panicked, desperate flight. Crucial break came not from high-tech policing, but from human fallibility. An associate of Thorne's, arrested on unrelated charges, agreed to cooperate to avoid his illegal peril. He led authorities to a secluded wooded plot in Macon County, land dotted with kudzu and forgotten logging trails. Among the items found was a distinctive hiking boot. Investigators showed a close-up photo to Robert. They were the same brand, the same distinctive tread pattern of the boots he'd bought for Naomi on a family trip to New York. He had teased her about getting real boots for their city adventures. Robert dropped the phone as if it had burned him, walked to a back stairwell, and screamed. A raw sound of agony, punching a concrete wall until his knuckles bled and split. Their worst fear was real. Naomi's remains had been found. The medical examiner would later confirm the cause. Homicide by gunshot. The timeline of terror was pieced together. The struggle in the car, the single shot, Thorne driving her lifeless body south, and the associate's haunting, reluctant account of seeing him drag something heavy, wrapped in a plaid blanket, into the absorbing darkness of the woods. On December the 2nd, Marcus Thorne was charged with capital murder. The state sought the death penalty. In court, he showed no remorse. He smirked at the family and challenged the evidence, claiming it was all hearsay, a performance of arrogant defiance. Diane and Robert attended every hearing, a torturous act of witness and presence. I wanted him to see me, Diane said.
Doesn't.
Her voice steely. To see that we are still here, that we are not broken by him, and that we are fighting for her every single day. This act of showing up became their new battleground. The deeper, more systemic outrage grew. As investigators revealed, Thorne was also a prime suspect in 2 other unfatal shootings the prior year. The man who took Naomi wasn't a first-time offender who snapped. He was a violent actor on an escalating trajectory. Yet he remained free on the streets. This revelation fueled Diane's transformation. You have people committing horrific, violent acts and just walking out of a courtroom on a signature. She testified at a state hearing, her voice clear and strong. It's a mathematical probability that some of them will reoffend. We turned my daughter into a statistic. It has to stop. Nearly 2,000 people attended her celebration of life just before Christmas. Her city, Homewood, declared a day in her honor. But for her family, every day is marked by her absence. Liam lost his closest confidant. The Thomas children lost a second one. Robert and Diane lost a part of their souls. The legal proceedings continue to crawl forward, delayed by pandemics and procedural motions. Thorne maintains his innocence. The family exists in a purgatory of postponed justice, where closure remains a distant, uncertain concept. The psychological toll of such a loss is a story in itself. Diane describes sullen on the radio, the scent of her shampoo in its door aisle, the sight of a young woman with a similar gait. These everyday moments become sudden, brutal portals back to the pain. For Robert, the fighter, brief was an opponent he couldn't outpunch. It required a surrender to vulnerability he was never trained for. He spoke of anger that had no outlet, a rage against the abstract, the system, the paperwork, the fatal oversight that was far harder to confront than a physical adversary in a cage. The community that once rallied with search parties now grapples with a different, lingering trauma. The gas station, once a neutral landmark, is now a site of collective memory and avoidance. For Naomi's friends, growing up has been marred by a lesson in mortality far too soon. Their milestones, graduations, engagements, first jobs, are shadowed by the haunting awareness of who is not there to celebrate. This is the extended radius of destruction caused by a single, violent act and a systemic failure. It is not a single event, but an ongoing condition that alters the lives of hundreds. The push for Naomi's Law opens a complex debate about the very foundations of justice. Proponents argue it is a common-sense measure to prevent predictable tragedy, a way to prioritize public safety. Critics warn of the dangers of eroding the presumption of innocence and the risk of overcrowding jails. Diane's response to this is measured but firm. "We are not talking about minor offenses," she states. "We are talking about individuals with demonstrable, recent histories of severe violence. The right to be considered innocent until proven guilty does not have to mean the right to walk freely among us when the evidence of danger is so stark. We must find a balance, because the cost of the current imbalance is measured in lives like my daughter's." It forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. What price does society pay for prioritizing procedural liberty over preventative protection? How many more families must be shattered before the calculus changes? Her memory demands more than our passive sadness. It demands our active voice and our insistence on accountability. It is a story about time, the 23 minutes that ended a life, the months of searching, the years waiting for a verdict, and the lifetime of absence that follows. It is a plea to examine the machinery of justice and ask if it is truly built for justice at all. If this story moved you, help amplify it. Please like this video and subscribe to Winds of Thought for more deep dives. Share your thoughts below. What does a justice system that truly protects the innocent look like to you?